Welcome to this explainer. Today we're unpacking a massive, high-stakes corporate drama. We're talking a literal standoff between India's central bank and one of its absolute largest conglomerates. It's this fascinating collision, really, between a deeply rooted corporate legacy and, well, modern financial compliance. The whole financial world is watching this play out, because whatever happens here doesn't just affect one company. No, it could set a massive precedent for how megacorporations are regulated going forward. I mean, think about it. What actually happens when a century-old charity model completely collides with strict financial law?
So right off the bat, we're looking at a deeply ironic situation. In the financial world, most companies absolutely dream of a massive public offering, right? They spend literally years grooming their books just to ring that opening bell on the stock exchange. But here, Tata Sons is fighting tooth and nail to avoid one. The Reserve Bank of India, the RBI, is currently holding them on a highly scrutinized regulatory list. And even though Tata is trying absolutely everything they can to just deregister and cancel these listing obligations, the central bank, well, they're holding completely firm. Okay, so what exactly is this list? It's the NBFC-UL, or Non-Banking Financial Company Upper Layer. You can kind of think of this as a regulatory VIP list, but definitely not the fun kind you want to be on. It's a specific category the RBI uses for entities that require some seriously enhanced regulatory oversight. Basically, when a financial company gets so incredibly massive and interconnected that its day-to-day operations could actually impact the broader financial system, the RBI steps in. They place them in this upper layer just to keep a much, much closer eye on them. And that brings us to why Tata Sons got flagged in the first place. It really comes down to one staggering number: 1.75 lakh crore rupees. That is the projected total asset value of Tata Sons from March 2026. To put that into perspective, it's an absolutely immense pool of wealth, and it's the exact reason they caught the regulator's attention. See, Tata Sons is registered as a core investment company. That basically means their main business is holding stakes in their sprawling empire of group companies. And when your assets reach that kind of stratosphere, you automatically trigger the central bank's radar.
The math here is totally unambiguous. The RBI set a revised asset threshold for this upper layer category, and they drew the line in the sand at 1 lakh crore rupees. At 1.75 lakh crore rupees, Tata Sons is sitting well above that line. From the central bank's perspective, look, rules are rules. These mathematical thresholds are meant to be applied uniformly, right? The goal is to ensure the stability and transparency of the entire financial system. So when the numbers speak this loudly, there really isn't much room for interpretation.
So the RBI has taken a highly calculated legal stance. Back on August 6th, the central bank essentially told Tata, hey, we hear that you want to surrender your license and deregister to avoid these rules, and we're looking into it. But until we decide, you are strictly bound by the upper layer regulations. It's a textbook example of regulatory firmness. They're making absolutely sure no one gets a free pass just because their paperwork happens to be stuck in limbo. Now, this whole dynamic creates what you could honestly call a regulatory Hotel California trap. Once you check into the upper layer, you can almost never leave. First, your asset criteria are reviewed every 3 years. Second, and this is the real sticking point for Tata, if you're categorized in this upper layer, you are strictly mandated to list on the stock exchanges within 3 years. And third, get this, even if your assets suddenly drop below the threshold in a later year, you're still hit with an enhanced regulatory lock-in for a mandatory 5 years. Actually, scratch that, it's more like a straitjacket. You literally cannot just shrink your way out of the rules once you've been tagged.
Adding a whole new layer of tension to this is a fascinating double standard between public and private entities. See, the RBI uses this ownership-neutral approach to put companies on the list, meaning both private and government-owned entities get scrutinized equally based on their size. But here's the catch. Eligible government-owned NBFCs are explicitly allowed to remain unlisted. Private giants like Tata, on the other hand, they absolutely must list within 3 years. You can see how this creates immense friction. Private conglomerates feel like they're being forcibly shoved into the public markets, while state entities just get a pass.
So to fight this mandatory public listing, Tata has launched a massive multi-pronged defense. First, they went right for the root of the issue and applied to just outright cancel their core investment company license. Then they escalated things straight to the top. In June, Tata Trust Chairman Noel Tata personally intervened. He wrote directly to the Reserve Bank of India, strongly opposing any potential listing of Tata Sons. And his core argument makes a lot of sense from their perspective. He argued that forcing a public listing could fundamentally alter the long-term character of the entire holding company. And this brings us to the true heart of the matter. Seriously, this battle goes way beyond mere corporate stubbornness. It is fundamentally about protecting the century-old philanthropic model that actually defines the Tata Group. You have to remember, Tata Sons isn't just your run-of-the-mill corporation. It's largely owned by the Tata Trusts, which channel massive amounts of dividends straight back into public welfare, healthcare, and education. It's the very identity of their ecosystem that's at stake here. If they go public, you suddenly have external shareholders demanding short-term quarterly dividends. That kind of pressure could fundamentally alter one of India's absolute largest engines for public good.
Now, it's definitely worth noting that Tata isn't alone on this regulatory island. They're sitting there alongside 17 other massive NBFCs, heavy hitters like REC, PFC, IRFC, and PNB Housing Finance. A lot of these companies just accept the regulations as the cost of doing business at such a massive scale. But Tata's progressive pushback, that makes their situation uniquely precedent-setting. Think about it. If the RBI caves and grants Tata an exception, or lets them deregister just to avoid listing, it could instantly prompt all these other financial giants to start hunting for their own loopholes.
Looking at the timeline here reveals a true collision course. Placed on the list back in 2022, Tata faces a strict 2025 expected listing deadline under that initial 3-year rule. Yet, with ongoing opposition stretching into 2026, including Noel Tata's direct appeal and the RBI's firm retention of the company on the list in August, we are literally watching the unstoppable force of regulation hurtling toward an immovable corporate legacy. The clock is ticking super loudly past these expected deadlines, and frankly, neither side has shown even a hint of willingness to compromise their core principles.
So as this whole standoff unfolds, the market is left staring at a massive, massive question. Should regulatory uniformity ultimately triumph over a company's unique philanthropic DNA? Both sides have valid, truly powerful arguments here. You've got the absolute, undeniable need for financial transparency on one hand versus the preservation of an incredible charitable corporate structure on the other. If the RBI forces Tata's hand, well, it could permanently change the nature of legacy empires in India. But if they bend the rules, the floodgates could open for every other financial giant out there. So, what do you think? Who's going to blink first?